So I greet you with a good morning from Redwood City, California, and for those of you much further from here, maybe a good afternoon, a good evening, maybe a good night even. So it's a profound thing to sit in community, to sit together with others. It's a profound thing to live in community, to live in communion, in harmony, in cooperation with others, and to have the circles of cooperation, of care, to extend outward in all directions, to all beings everywhere, is fantastic. To do that well, whether to care for, to meet with, to encounter a single other person or many people, it really helps if we are really embodied in ourselves. If we, in a sense, are very present here and all of who we are can be present and to encounter, to meet another person. The more we are in the present moment, the more we learn to be mindful, the mindfulness is holistic, that all of who we are is included, even that which is difficult for us, the suffering, the challenges that we have. But there's a way in which we stay rooted in ourselves, as if all of ourselves can be here and be present to contribute to our full capacity to meet someone else and for someone else to meet us. And in that fullness, we care for the world, we connect with the world, we become friends of the world. There's more of us to be friendly with when we are fully present. So we sit partly to be rooted and unified and complete in all of who we are. And to do that, it's both simple and difficult enough to be a life task. Simple, and that is just to really be present for what is. Difficult because to really acknowledge, see, include, and discover how to be inclusive, unifying for all of who we are without pushing anything away or being afraid of anything or being ashamed by anything is a task of a lifetime. So here we sit to take an upright or appropriate posture for yourself. Taking a posture that you feel that maybe you have a chance to include all of yourself, no part left out. And to gently close your eyes, if that's comfortable for you. And taking deep breaths at the beginning of a meditation can be a beginning of a process of becoming inclusive of all of who we are. To breathe in deeply and start feeling our body and all the ways that are stretched and opened and expanded as we breathe in. And as we exhale, long, gentle exhale, to settle into this being that we are, to settle into this body here, now. And then letting your breathing return to normal. And to allow your attention to wander around your body with the idea that you're maybe like someone who is sewing all the pieces together, or taking a jigsaw puzzle and putting the pieces together. Or turning on the light, and all aspects of who we are can be revealed. Let your attention roam around your body, noticing what's here for you. In this body that is the very place, location, that attention, presence is to be rooted. Attention is to find its home. And then as you roam around your body, if there's any obvious places that you can relax and settle. Generally, tension in the body is kind of a way to pull away from really being rooted or at home here. Perhaps relaxing the muscles of the face. And softening, relaxing the shoulders so they can feel the gentle pull of gravity. Softening the belly, letting maybe the belly hang forward and down. Feeling the weight of the whole torso settling into the pelvic cavity, down to the sitting bones. And if you're sitting upright, to feel the energy or the momentum of the torso rising up from the base. The vitality, the aliveness. And then within your body, as part of your body, become aware of how the body experiences breathing. And this expression, how the body experiences breathing, is a movement towards being inclusive with the awareness. So the awareness is not only in the control tower, separate, pulled back, looking at things from this distance, as if we are the observer. But we are as much the experience of the body breathing as we are what's aware of it. We are as much the mind's awareness of thinking as we are the one who is aware of thinking. The mind's experience of thinking might have energy and tightness and pressure. And to feel that, to know that the mind's experience of thinking and in this coming together, this unifying of you being aware and the mind's experience of itself, Perhaps you can gently relax the thinking muscle. And then relax back into the body's experience of breathing that is known, that you're aware of. And then as we sit here quietly, whatever takes you away from your breathing, you don't need to fight against that or be troubled by it. Let yourself first and foremost be aware of it, as if being aware of it is including all things, unifying all things, letting yourself be complete with all things. And after that inclusion and recognition, acknowledgement, almost like not turning away from anything, but returning to the center of all things. Return to your breathing. Breathing in and breathing out. last 5 minutes of this sitting. Something like how if you turn a light on in a room, the light touches all things, includes all things in the room. So perhaps you can turn on or find within a place of quiet, stillness or peace, from which you can be aware of all things, including whatever is not peaceful, not quiet, not still. Or a stillness, a peace, or a quiet that's wider than any of the movements and activity and agitation. That all things are held in a field of peacefulness, quiet, gentle, friendly stillness, the friendly space around us. And then to end this sitting, perhaps to any degree which you're calmer or more settled, or any degree to which you're more self-aware, even if what you're aware of is difficult, is this greater connection, awareness of yourself. Can it be the source for caring for the world? Can it be a way to bring more of yourself, all of yourself, into your connections and contacts with others, so that more of you is available to care for the welfare and happiness of others, and to be and to become and to be an agent of care, a conveyor of care, a conveyor, caregiver, that wishes for the happiness, well-being, peace for all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be safe. So greetings from Redwood City, and I appreciate very much the chance to share with all of you the Dharma, or at least my best understanding of the Dharma, the practice, and how it expresses itself in the world, and in particular, how it expresses itself in the world, caring for the world, caring for the welfare and happiness of others. That this Dharma practice, Buddhism, is integrally connected, or part and parcel of our capacity and our motivation to care for all beings, including ourselves. For some time now, I have been referring in my conversations with people that we're living in the COVID-19 era. Maybe other people are saying this as well. It just came out, maybe I learned it from someone else, this idea of the COVID-19 era. I hope that in the future, when people think back to this time, that this time will not be known as the COVID-19 era, not named after a disease, but rather it'll be known as the era of care, the era in which people cared for each other. It's a time, it will be known as a time where there was a clear call in all of humanity to care for each other, to care for everyone in this planet, and in particular to the poor, the sick, the oppressed, the people who are most challenged with, already before this COVID-19 spread around the globe, but now are even more challenged than to the breaking point around the world. And we know that many more people have been mobilized, have been engaged in caring for others who have the disease of COVID-19 than are people who have the disease, or people who've died from the disease. I suspect for every person who's died of the disease, there's been a team of caregivers, hopefully, around them. Maybe not everyone, some people have died alone, but that we have, in the news every day, stories of in hospitals, medical teams who are actively involved, working day and night to care for people, to save people's lives. We have family and friends and neighbors who are caring for people who are sick. And the circles of care that goes outwards is in fact greater than the people who have the illness. Not to diminish our care for the people who are sick, but rather to remember the goodness, to remember how much compassion, kindness, support, that there are people motivated. And this is the bright light of the world, I think, is these people who are supporting and helping so much. And I suspect, and I hope, that a majority of the people on this earth have done some act of expressing care for others, care, compassion, support for people who are impacted or could be impacted by the pandemic. And what I mean by this is that even people who are not sick are sheltering in place, are washing their hands, are doing the kinds of things that will somehow reduce the spread of the disease, caring for those who might get it if we spread it. I think it's highly symbolic that that in this with this virus, that the same behavior that involves caring for oneself, protecting oneself from the disease, is the behavior that protects others from the disease. So what I mean by that, if we shelter ourselves in place, stay home, certainly we can do that protecting ourselves so we don't get sick. But simultaneously, that act is protecting others from how we might be the vector spreading the disease. And we know that many people have the disease without even knowing it, or they have it for several weeks, many days, without knowing it, and are therefore vectors. They're carried along out into the world. And once one person places it on a doorknob or in some place, then it can spread from there and multiplies in the context that goes outwards. So the fact that we shelter in place, it protects ourselves and it protects others. And I find this deeply symbolic, that caring for ourselves is a way of caring for others, and caring for others is a way of caring for ourselves. And maybe this applies to many more things in life than the virus. I think that that there's something very, very significant, that we're all in it together in this world. And the if we care for each other in all kinds of different ways, the sum total benefit for everyone is much greater than if we have many individuals only taking care of themselves, only thinking about themselves. And the fact those people who are really mostly concerned with themselves, if they only knew, if they could open up their hearts and their activities and their concern to a much wider field, it would come back to them in phenomenal, wonderful ways. So this idea, this is a time, and also this another symbolic thing about this time and the coronavirus time is the phenomenal way we're experiencing how much we're interrelated. We're interrelated in ways that we can spread the virus, but we're interrelated in the way that we can care for each other and benefit each other all over the globe, all over what we do. And that's also symbolic, that we're so deeply interrelated at a global level. It was a time when, not so long ago, that people didn't know people beyond their valley, beyond their little community, beyond their neighborhood. And I grew up I'm from Norway, and there they had many, many different dialects of Norwegian. I was surprised when I met someone who spoke Norwegian. I couldn't understand them because they came from far up in the north. And it used to be that people didn't travel. There were no roads in the country, and there were all these different fjords that were semi-isolated. And people developed whole different languages of different kinds of Norwegian because they only knew the people there. And but now we know people all over the world and know about them. And the more we know about the world now, the more we understand that we are medically connected through things like the virus. And we've known that for some time, that viruses spread around the world, flus, that we're economically connected, we're politically connected, we're connected in so many different ways that was unimaginable a long time ago. And so, again, this is also, I think, a call to care, that all the networks of interrelatedness are also potential networks for how the spread of our care can go in all directions. And certainly to really kind of come out the best possible way from this COVID-19 illness and the virus, the more we can care for each other, be careful and in the right ways and supportive, the more we can manage to get along. And at the same time, how we care for the people's work and economy and economics, and care for the people who are not becoming sick, but the people who are going to be, who are and are going to be in tremendous economic distress because of what's happening. So there are predictions that more people might die from the recession and the economic collapse than from the illness itself. I don't know if that's a true statement. I mean, that's going to play out, but certainly there's going to be all kinds of problems that are in the wake of this illness. And some of the weakest links in the world, the weak links of our human chain of connectivity we have, are going to suffer the most. There are millions of people, it's a phenomenal number of people in refugee camps. And those refugee camps, they're just barely eking out an existence in all these different places where they are, in Darfur and Bangladesh, and refugees from Syria, and it just goes on and on, the refugees around the world. And they're barely surviving in dense camps, and even if the virus doesn't come actively into them, the food chains are disrupted. The ability to have support, the nonprofits who support them are challenged financially and getting the work done. So who cares for them? Who cares? How do we care for the rest of the world? Do we care for them? And I hope that we in the United States will have as much dedication to caring for each other at this time, to find our way through in a healthy, beneficial way for all beings, support everyone, as this country dedicated itself to World War II. It's touching to me that that generation of World War II was called the greatest generation. What are they going to call this generation, or the generation of us that are here now? The people who step forward and really try to come out of this in a way that it'll be in the history books, that this was a generation that cared. Could it be the caring generation? Could it be the greatest caring generation? What will be known this time? And what a lesson, what a inspiration, what a kind of ambrosia for the heart, for the soul, for the psyche, to experience and know care in all kinds of ways. And that it's ambrosia and that it's nourishment for us. And I think it's because it's deeply embedded in our human system and human nature to care and to be cared for. It touches something profound within us. And I think that to call forth as an example of this, how central care is and how central caring for each other is for our very well-being, is to consider the amount of care that goes into child care, into child raising. A baby is born and can't care at all for itself. And the amazing amount of care that it takes to bring a baby into toddlerhood and into childhood, into adolescence, into adulthood, is phenomenal what it takes. And the child, the baby, needs to feel that care, needs to feel that safety, needs to kind of take it in that this is the world they live in. Otherwise, they don't kind of grow up into the fullest human being that they can, where they feel they can trust this world and are present in a safe way and can offer the world something in return. And we care for our elders, and our parents, that as when they get older and need help, there's care for them that's provided. And, it's kind of natural to do this, to offer care. And it feeds something inside of us. And to expand those circles of care, or to think of those circles of care, not only for the people who are our friends and families, or our particular community, but to have that sense of care to go outwards into all directions for the whole world, I think is part and parcel, or intimately connected to Buddhist practice. This freeing up of the heart, freeing up of our capacity to care, to have compassion, to have love, freeing ourselves from whatever barriers we have of being present in a full, embodied, and complete way to meet this world, to be in this world like it is. Using this word care repeatedly here is my translation of a Buddhist term that the Buddha used called anukampa. It goes back to the time of the Buddha, where there's a very clear usage of this word that lends itself to not only to understand that it means compassion, but also means something broader. It means it has to do with care and caring for others in more ways than just caring for their suffering and not wanting them to suffer. Anukampa also means to care for people's welfare and for their happiness. Even people who are well off, comfortable and safe, maybe have enough food, they're not suffering in some deep, obvious way. We can also kind of, with our generosity, want to care for them, care for their well-being, care for their happiness. As much as compassion is one of the most profound things a human person can feel, it's not really suited in all situations. If we only have compassion for our friends might start feeling uncomfortable around us. But if we care for them, that maybe there's infinite room to care for the well-being and happiness of our friends. It's a broader sensibility. But also, it seems like it's a natural sensibility. It's a natural sensitivity that we all have. At least that's the impression I get from reading the teachings of the Buddha. Because the Buddha never talks about cultivating or developing anukampa, this capacity for care. He just assumes it's there. He assumes that it's there more and more the more we let go of hatred, the more we let go of ill will, the more we let go of things that block the existence of it. And the people who become more spiritually mature, the people who are more liberated and free, awakened, maybe one of the things they awaken to is they awaken to their capacity to care. I like the word care a lot because it's in my mind, it's a humble word. It's a word that hasn't been used very much in the translations of the Buddhist texts into English. There's been these grand terms like compassion and loving kindness that have been used. But care is, I think it's part and parcel of what the Buddha was teaching. But that it's kind of a humble word because it's a natural part of the human life. And we probably use it all the time in our language, but it doesn't really get elevated that high like compassion does in the world of religion or Buddhism so much. And I'd like to elevate a little bit. I'd like to point out that it's here as a natural part. I'm touched, how if you start thinking about where the word care is used in our society, it's used in healthcare. The intensive care unit. palliative care. And it goes on and on. The places, spiritual care is a department of chaplaincy, sometimes it's called Department of Spiritual Care. It's used for child care. The child care providers, people who work in nursery schools and kindergartens are sometimes called or babysitters, child care providers. Caregiving. Many people are caregivers. Many people who don't get paid for it. There are caregivers who are paid, and then there's family members who are known as caregivers. If we're caring for someone who's sick, someone who's maybe dying, we talk about the family's caregivers and their needs and how to support them as well. And so this word care is used kind of over and over again in English. And it's a wonderful word because it has kind of two meanings. To care is to care for something can mean to value it, to be interested in it, to attend to it in some way or other. And not necessarily because it's suffering, because it's something we want to care for and make it function well. To care for our car, I don't think our car suffers usually, but we care for our car by getting oil changed and different things, which help it kind of function well. And then to give care, to be a caregiver, is to, there's a care that has to do with actually supporting people, helping people, supporting people to have a better life and to bring benefit to people. And there's two things: to be interested, to value people, together with the idea of supporting them and doing things that are, to help them out, or things that are compassionate sometimes. And these two are fascinating, these two meanings of care to come together, because we could say that we take care of what we care for. We take care of what we care about. To care about other people, we take care of other people. And how do we, into this kind of mutuality, or this place where it comes from, to value other people, we take care of other people. And how can we not value other people if we're deeply rooted at home and centered in ourselves? Because as the practice deepens and we open up and become freer and freer of the forces of contraction, attachment, clinging, it's natural to see others, to feel others, to be sensitive to others in a deep way from that place deep inside, where care is a natural functioning of who we are. There's no need to evoke care, or to create care, or build care, or remind ourselves care, or think about what a good idea care is, if we're centered on ourselves, so that inner sensitivity, the empathy, can be there. The word anukampa, that I'm translating as care, is kampa means to shake or to tremble. Anu means towards, in relationship to something. And for the heart to tremble, to shake, to resonate towards what's happening in the world to other people. For our inner life to have the sensitivity, to be mindful enough, awake enough, to feel the natural sensitivity that we don't feel if we wear armor, if we're closed off, if we're caught up in anger or greed or ambition or conceit. And this beautiful and profound spiritual task of settling, letting go of conceit, greed, ambition, letting go of the very touching and profound ways which we're afraid, scared, to let go of all the difficult ways where we have hatred or ill will. And then in that letting go, to feel the sensitivity of our inner life, the way we can pick up and feel empathy for other people, to drop the barriers, to drop the armor. And this, this kind of mutuality of how if we care for others, we care for ourselves, has a kind of a reverse principle. And that is that if we're self-absorbed, only taking care of ourselves, me, myself, and mine, if we paradoxically are also harming ourselves. If we have unfettered, it might feel like we're freer if we have unfettered expression of our hatred. Just, I'm free and I'm expressing it. Or if we have unrestrained ability to follow our desires. Whatever we want, I should be able to free to do. It becomes an alienation, a disconnection from something that's deeper than desires, or deeper than greed, or deeper than hatred, or deeper than delusion, deeper than conceit. In fact, we harm ourselves when we act from greed, hate, and delusion. And so this paradox, the more we act only for ourselves, the more we harm ourselves. The more we, not out of obligation, the more that we free ourselves from greed, hate, and delusion, the more we become someone who benefits ourselves, frees ourselves, touches into what's most beautiful within ourselves. Turns out that if we do that work, one of the beautiful things we find inside is our natural capacity for anukampa, our natural capacity for care. So, in this COVID-19 era, in what I hope will become the era of care, that what do you care about? At what point does the welfare and well-being of others become not only something you care about, but something your care is motivated by, your actions and how you are in the world? How can you not wait for someone else to do the caring, but how can your care be expressed? I think our hearts need to know that we're doing something, anything that makes a difference. Some people are living in good circumstances, and I imagine some people who are living in good circumstances, who are sheltered at home, are actually spending less money than they normally would be. Please use some of that money. Don't just sit and make your savings get bigger. Make donations to the places where people really need it. There are people who are hungry in the United States and around the world. Let's make sure that people have enough food. Invest that money in some place that makes a difference for our society, that brings benefit. Don't just sit on the money. For those of you who don't have money to share, who are struggling financially, allow yourself to be helped. Allow yourself, go out and try to help, let people know that you're in need. Because unless we know, people won't be able to help. And if you are being helped by others, there's still others that you can help as well. See what you can do, even if it's just a smile or a phone call or a friendly conversation with someone you meet. There are an infinite number of ways that our capacity for anukampa, our capacity for care, can be expressed. To begin expressing it more and more is also the path of freeing ourselves from all the forces of attachment and clinging. Care enough, act on your care, And you begin stretching into the limits, into the edges, into the places of attachment and clinging. And then you bring your practice there and begin to dissolve it or stretch it thin and eventually let it go away. We have a practice to let go of attachments and clinging so that we can care better. And we can care so that we can meet those attachments and clingings, so we can let them go. The mutuality of practice and care, care and practice in Buddhism. May we contribute to a wonderful potential that's inherent in this globe right now. The potential, possibility that this becomes the era of care, and that we are part of the caring generation that is remembered and celebrated for generations to come. It's that important what's happening now. So thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and to share what's on my heart, and I hope it has some benefit for you and inspires you at this difficult time for our society, our world. I wish you all well.